Okay, we are recording. This is a regular meeting of the Old Lyme Affordable Housing Commission, Wednesday, March 16th. It's 5:02 p.m. In attendance, we have Karen Winters, Bill Belluzzi, Jen Miller, Lori Walker, myself, Michael Foliano. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Town of Old Lyme website. So first order of business, if there's no objection, I'm going to seat Lori as a voting member. Very good.
All right. Good.
You're on, Lori. Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes. We'll do some housekeeping first. February 15th special meeting. That was actually the workshop. I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes for discussion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Those are pretty summary. The slide deck has been posted.
Good.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Approved. Okay, moving on to the marathon of that week. The regular meeting of Wednesday, February 16th. And again, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes for discussion. Karen?
Just Jen, I'll second.
Jen, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor of approval, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Updates. First is a kind of a non-update, the McCulloch family open space option. The parties that are supposed to be part of the meeting to discuss the proposal won't be around until next month. So it'll be a couple of more weeks before we actually get this back on track. So things are on hold and in the same status they were the last time we spoke.
Okay.
Which is we have the proposal where the town would retain ownership of the property, form a building committee, engage a developer to develop starter homes on each of the two building envelopes for sale to a qualified occupant under the provisions of 830G. And we have some notional financial targets in there, some pro forma finances, and we're going to review that with planning and with the finance department, with the finance board, and with the board of selectmen as soon as Amanda's back in town. And we're preferring to do that face to face rather than trying to do it by telephone or video, so we can work it through. So that's that. Any discussion on that? Questions? Okay.
Do you have a time frame, Mike, when they might re-engage on that?
Yeah, it'll be a couple of weeks when the snowbirds will be back in town.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Anything else on McCulloch? Okay, ARPA proposal. We had a little movement on this at the ARPA committee meeting last week. Our provisional proposal was just entered into the provisional spreadsheet they have there, pending a formal application process that is still being developed. So we basically have a placeholder in for our proposal. I did learn one thing that I at least didn't know prior to this. I think it's still intact that the idea that we have in mind, which is essentially to acquire a town-owned or a bank-owned or a property that is up for sale and isn't going to be occupied, and refurbish that as affordable housing as a redevelopment project. So far, we've heard nothing to oppose the notion that actually falls under the provisions of ARPA, and it's qualifies for funding under ARPA. So I think we're good there. What I heard that I didn't know is that the projects have to be completed within a year. So these aren't allowed to be open-ended or long-term projects. So they're meant to be short duration. I just want to put out that out there, and Jen, in particular for you, does that keep us in the realm of feasibility that we could acquire a town-owned or a bank-owned property or a property that was for sale, get it refurbed and back on the market in a year?
So, yeah, well, obviously it depends on the extent, right?
Yep.
So from going through the town-owned property list, again, there's no town-owned properties which are homes that have been foreclosed on. They're just lots or land. So I don't think that would be doable in that situation. But yeah, I think from purchasing a blighted house or something like that, and it could certainly be done within a year, and it just depends again on people and money. So if the more volunteers we have and the more leadership we have around the renovation committee, knowledge on the team, et cetera, if we put the right team together, in other words, it's totally doable within a year.
Okay, so I was curious too. I'm at least peripherally aware of the challenge of getting materials and contractors and such
Right.
these days. So, okay, good. So I think let's press on then. If it's at least feasible, what I don't want to do is waste anyone's time if it's clearly not feasible. But if it is, let's press on. And for the next phase, so that where we are right now is the scope of this is going to be as cleanly as possible, acquiring a distressed property that isn't intended to be occupied by the current owner, refurb it, and then sell or rent it under the provisions of 830G to at a qualified cost to a qualified buyer or renter. So the gap right here, the missing link is actually identifying a property. And Lori, I'm glad you're here. Is there any way that we can find potentially bank-owned properties that might be up for sale?
They're awfully hard to find. Do you think, Karen, from your days in banking, were there easy to find lists? Not really.
There was not, but I was just thinking to myself, like, you used to be able to go onto the CHFA website, and I'll do it right now while we're chatting. And they used to be able to find the properties that were going to be up for sale. I'm trying to remember. It's been a few years. See if I can find anything.
I guess the auctions go up and are legally posted.
Right.
Right.
CHFA homes for sale. Let's see.
And I think if there was a CHFA or USDA one in town for sale, we might know it because there's only 3 of them, right? So
There's nothing on the CHFA. There's not one home there.
yeah.
That
might be a challenge because they're already, if they were already under that program, then they would have already probably qualified as affordable.
Yeah.
So it might not be the right list to look at. So I'm wondering if there's just some other way we could figure that out. But yeah, that would be the conundrum probably is the opportunity to actually purchase one, move somebody out who might still be occupying it, then fix it up and sell it. But they would have to have somewhere to go.
Yep.
My first thought.
Unless it was already vacant, that's
that would
be the ideal case. But in any case, Jen, you and Karen have been working on this, right?
Well, we were supposed to be working on it. I don't think we've touched base much on it, honestly. So I think that we could have a renewed vigor around it. Put it that way.
All right. So anticipating that there will be an application process, if you two could just kind of write up just what the proposal would look like, leave a placeholder there for actually identifying a property and scout out some resources that we could monitor, then I think we can take the next step. The ARPA is going to be open for a while. The funding is going to be open for a while.
Oh, good. Okay. They haven't sort of earmarked it already. When does that committee think that they'll be allocating out the funding?
I don't know, but there's going to be at least 2 tranches too. So
okay.
But I think our next step is to just
Be ready with a proposal. Yeah.
be ready and have that scope articulated so that it clearly falls within the boundaries of ARPA and not just the redevelopment aspect of it, but the time bound aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And be ready to pounce if an opportunity comes up.
Okay. Great. So Karen, I'll set something up for us then. And if anybody else wants to join, you're welcome to. I think we can only have 3, right, Michael? Otherwise,
The third one constitutes
a
trips,
quorum.
like
Yeah.
triggers a public meeting, definitely. So it's only pairwise. Since
Okay.
we have 5, 3 is a quorum.
I got you. All right. We'll feed back to you then.
Yeah, and there's no problem with that if you want to do it. I mean, or even if if 2 of you meet and you want to use WebEx to do it, it's easy to set up. So,
Gotcha.
but if you do meet, but the consideration there is that if we're going to hold a public meeting, then the agenda has to be posted 24 hours in advance,
No, yeah. Let Karen and then come back to you guys with
and
something.
there have to be minutes. So,
Yeah. Be much easier.
and we want to err on the side of keeping things wide open.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on ARPA? We're moving slowly, but bit by bit, we're kind of narrowing down what we need to do.
And Michael, it probably goes without saying, but the 1 year is 1 year from the time that the money is allocated, released,
Yeah.
right? And this, the town has 2 years to spend this money or allocate it or spend it.
Don't know.
Okay, but it's something within 2 years, right? We have. Okay.
So there's no guarantee we're going to be able to do this, but it would be a shame to just let it go if an opportunity comes up. Okay. Updates next up, we have PA 2129, specifically opting out of the provisions in PA 2129 that supersede local zoning regulations to have accessory dwelling units be as of right across the board. So we've discussed this before, and the zoning commission is going to be starting a process to exercise the opt-out option for a variety of reasons, which we've discussed are good reasons, ranging from the general principle of home rule to some of the specific issues of having ADUs in some of the like the R10 zones in town. But as we also discussed, we don't want to just revert to the current zoning regulations that generally treat accessory dwelling units as a special use that require extra application process, public hearings, and some administrative hurdles for folks who want to create an ADU to go through, particularly in the larger zones. And the rationale for that is, as we've been deliberating both on the committee and now on the commission, it's pretty clear that accessory dwelling units are going to be an important part of a strategy to provide additional housing for seniors and for the smaller households that we expect more and more of, given the demographic shifts going on. So we had agreed to send a note to the zoning commission, which we did, and ask for a brief timeout to discuss what would come next after the opt-out, and potentially in one step also have some changes to, or proposed changes to, the ADU regulations ready to go, so that they would actually fall into place as the opt-out took effect. So there would be no effective reversion to the current regulations. So Paul Orzell and Dan Beret, Paul being the chairman of the zoning commission, rang me up, and we actually had a discussion last week about that. And their concern is that the clock is ticking. The town has to opt out by January of 2023. And even though it's still March of 2022, there's enough process in front of them to exercise the opt out that they want to get moving. And I understand that. I did express concern that once we opt out, that the can gets kicked down the road and it takes a very long time to actually make any positive changes to the ADU regulations. And I was assured by Paul that they would be able to take it up by the summer. So I didn't see that as a showstopper, because that's about the time. I don't envision that we're going to have a actionable proposal ready before the summer, so that the gears actually mesh on the timeline for that. So the way this is going to work, where we left it after our discussion, again, this was Paul Arzell, myself, and Dan Bray, who's the land use officer in town, was that and I think this actually happened on Monday, that the process was initiated, that the zoning commission received the request or petition to exercise the opt-out, which is part of their process. And then it'll come up for discussion at their April meeting. As part of our discussion, we were also invited to talk about our take on the ADUs at the April meeting as part of the proceedings for the opt-out, and we're going to take advantage of that. So there'll be more to come on that, but we actually will have an agenda slot on the April meeting of the Zoning Commission to not just talk about the opt-out, but talk about our vision for how those should be replaced. So we're going to need to discuss that further.
It's good. It's good to hear that. I think that Paul called you and you guys discussed it and got the thoughts, because I'm not sure how much they've been involved with what we've been doing. So I think it's a good first step. And yeah, if there's anything that we could do to prepare for the April meeting, that would be more like powerful, impactful. Maybe we could think about just a piece of information or one or two pieces to couple with what we've already done. But I think that's a good step. Yeah, it would be great if during that meeting they would, either make their commitment to opt out or whatever decision to opt out, but make a commitment, at least publicly on the record, that they won't be, that they're going to continue to, tweak the ADU process in town, and they recognize the need. And so statements like that would be very positive.
Yep, I agree. And so far so good. I have no reason to believe that won't happen.
Do we happen to know the date of the zoning meeting, or is it the second something or other of the week?
It'll be Monday.
Monday.
This is Monday. Is Monday, April 15th? Is that a day?
Friday.
No, it'll be Monday, April 11th, I believe.
Yeah, the 11th is a Monday.
Yep. I can check if somebody has the town website open, you can check the town website too.
Okay,
It's
thanks.
second Tuesday, I believe.
Yep. Okay. So there we are. So we'll need to have at least, I think the way that April meeting will go is we'll provide some background information on why ADUs are important for affordable housing, to sort of level set us on the background of how our strategy is evolving at that point. And our strategy should be pretty well evolved, because by the time we get to that date, we're going to be going for adoption of the affordable housing plan. So we should have our act together by then. I think we do now. I mean, the concept is that at least for some of the zoning districts where it's practicable, that ADUs become more of an administrative procedure than a special use.
Does Rivercog, I'm only just thinking, and I don't know how granular in April we have to be, but does Rivercog have any suggestions, ways to approach that. In other words, we'd like to make it a simpler process. And if you remember when we were dissecting the legislation, the piece that had to do about ADUs, there was an awful lot that was, in there, and so obviously want to make it easier and simpler to do that. Do we have to be more specific by April?
Not by that first date, I don't think. And yes, April, Rivercog does have some resources. We have Dan in town who's a resource. So yeah, we have what other towns have done, and a lot of them
Good.
have. So yeah, I think we have resources. And no, I don't envision that in April we're going to show up with a petition with specific language.
No, I'm thinking of maybe just some general ideas about some of those things.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think that'll be an issue.
good. Okay.
So we're probably going to need a special meeting to discuss it, but this wheel has been invented,
Good.
just not here.
I like that.
So that was good, at least to my mind. That was good progress, and so far a good outcome. More to do.
Nice.
Okay, so those are the major updates. We have some other irons in the fire that are not active right now, but we're obviously have a lot of work to do over the next. We're just about we're a little less than 2 weeks out from our next community workshop on the affordable housing plan, which we'll get into next. But anything else for updates?
Nope.
Okay. Speaking of the affordable housing plan, I've got a little laundry list on here. I've been in touch with Karen Martin. The first one there is the capacity analysis. The capacity analysis is underway. I've asked for, if they could, just a quick readout, if possible, on just the acreage in each of our zoning districts in town, so that we can get a sense of what percentage of the area in town is occupied by the residential, rural, and the multifamily and commercial districts. We can see from the map that it's pretty clear graphically that the commercial and multifamily districts are the smaller ones, and that there are a few like the R10 and R15 zones, and the town, most of the area in the town is in the rural 20 and rural 40 districts, but it would be good to have some quantitative analysis of that coming through, and hopefully we'll get that soon. But the capacity analysis is underway. So far, at least, the consultants have everything they need from us, and we're on standby if they need additional information, but that's going. And again, the output of that is essentially going to be some quantitative assessment of how much development capacity is left in Old Lyme, which we can use combined with the needs analysis to see how things fit together. And we won't be working in a vacuum. We'll have the reality of knowing what the capacity in town is, so that we can set strategies and goals accordingly.
And this will all be delivered in the next week or so?
No,
Oh, okay. I thought you meant before the workshop. Okay. So
no, whatever they have at the workshop. So the workshop's in 2 weeks. Whatever they have, we'll have an interim readout at least.
okay.
The intent is to have this ready to include in its entirety with the plan by June 1st, or actually, which will be actually by late April, as we go to adoption. So we'll see how that goes.
Talk about available land, Michael. Let me dumb it down a little bit for me. So if they tell us what's available to develop, and we know we have a need, I mean, that doesn't equal anything, does it? I mean, the land's not for sale. So
No, it's potential capacity.
I understand.
So
Okay.
to look for undeveloped land that is likely to be privately owned at this point.
Okay.
So it's
Doesn't
only
mean it's
potential.
going to be for sale.
No, it's not. It doesn't include being actively for sale. It's just potential.
Okay.
One of the other things we might want to look at is out of the 68 town-owned properties, of which, 15 or so were municipal buildings and such, the rest were lots of some assorted sizes, probably undevelopable pieces, left over from subdivisions or something. But there were some parcels on there that were like an acre or even larger, a few. But I wonder, they probably have a water issue or a swamp issue or things like that. So I wonder, maybe it might maybe I could just go by a few of those parcels and just see if there's no reason noted for why they're owned by the town or why they're not developed. But certainly if we could get them back on the tax rolls, that might be a benefit for the town. But if it's my feeling is that there's probably a reason that nobody has developed anything on them yet. That's my feeling anyways, but I could take a look at a few of the larger ones and just see.
Yeah, my understanding, Jen, is that they're actually going to be looking at that. So they're
are?
going to look at the land. They're going to look and see, if it's a watershed, if it's a protected area. They have limited ability to look at the geology to see if it's ledge, but they're going to try.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they're going to give that a go and actually try to do the math to come up and give us a picture of what a realistic
Okay.
theoretical capacity is if the land were to be made available.
Okay.
So one thing that they're looking at doing is there's a lot of conservation easements in town, and it's not clear how they're going to sort that out, but that may be an asterisk at the time, but they're trying.
Yeah, those are on the tax
Yeah.
things that
Yep.
Judy ran for me. So if they want my list, or I could fax it to them or something. But
Yeah, if you want to send it to me, I can get it to them. If you have it, there's no reason why they shouldn't have it. If it's a public record, they should have it.
yeah. And Judy could just print off another one if you need it. Judy took her. So
Cool. So that's a work in progress. The story map website. I saw a really rough prototype of one. Actually saw Coventry's, and it looked pretty good. Karen is putting one together, and we're actually going to touch base tomorrow morning, and I'll expect to be sending you a link tomorrow to a draft story map website that captures a lot of what's on our current website in the tabs and some of the stuff from the last workshop, and actually puts it kind of in that scrolling narrative with pictures going by story map format that you currently see on the RiverCog website for the regional plan. And what I saw looks pretty good. Looks really nice. So that's work in progress as well. And we were supposed to meet today, and I'd hoped to have that for you today, but we weren't able to connect. So we're meeting tomorrow, and I should have a link out you tomorrow to review. So that's on our way, and it looks good. Developer outreach. That's something that's on our radar screen. Where we left it last time was we were going to come up with some questions. John's not able to join us tonight. I know he was going to think about that. Things are getting tight, so I just wanted to put it out there. If it's feasible to get some developer input to inform our strategy and plan for the June 1st deadline, that's good. If not, another way to capture that would be to put it on the list of action items and recommendations that's going to be part of the plan, and do that after June 1st, and just leave a placeholder for it.
I mean, I think we could get at least some some information from some developers. I don't know the local ones. I only know like CBRE and Colliers International. I have contacts there, but maybe if there's a local developer, we could get some information from them. But I don't know. Like I see the signs
Our
around.
first was going to be to have a list of what we want to know. What we're interested in knowing, and so far we don't have that yet, and I haven't had time to work on it.
Okay.
So I think
I can think about it tomorrow.
we need to clear that hurdle, and then then we'll be able to take a next step. What I don't think would be productive would be to just kind of randomly call people and just have a chat. I think we want to have some, not necessarily have it tightly scripted, but at least have a some
consistent, yeah,
yeah,
consistent
some kind of
questions,
and whether it's an interview format or we send it out as a survey is another option we need to discuss. But I think regardless, the headwaters of this are to have, what do we want to know from this outreach?
yeah. And I think, for me, it might be just the, like what would attract you to develop a piece of property anywhere, in Connecticut, whatever. What's the rate of return you're looking for, those kinds of questions around, what's their threshold, right? For, for building, it has to be some kind of rate of return that they're looking at, whether it's 10 or 25 or 50%. I'm sure they have a rate of return they're looking at, and maybe they don't want to disclose it, but maybe they could give us an idea of a range.
Yep. So if we could capture, those kinds of thoughts, so we could all have a look at it and say, yep, that's the list. And again, whether it takes the form of an interview or a survey that we send out, then we at least have some consistency between the discussions, and we can match what we get with what we want to get out of it, and have something meaningful that we can use.
Okay.
So our next regular meeting is going to be in April, so we're going to be pretty close to adoption by then. I'm not sure it's going to be pretty late to include it. In the next item here, I'm going to say we're probably going to need a special meeting next week. So if there's an opportunity to put that on the agenda for a special meeting next week, we could do it.
Okay. I mean, I can, with those kinds of sort of metrics in mind, it's more of like a quantitative process rather than we're in the affordable housing business, like Hope or whoever. I think that we could just get, like, our aim is to increase the diversity of housing stock in Old Lyme. Like, what would attract you to do that, to help us do that?
And I know John had some thoughts on this, so if you can run it by John and
Okay.
compile that, and then we can discuss it together and do what we do.
Okay.
That would be good.
There were two mentions in the last 2 weeks, I think, in the day about projects elsewhere. One in Niantic, I guess, and one in Waterford, and where the mention was about properties in other towns, including, and Old Lyme was specifically listed. Now, I don't know whether they have specific properties in Old Lyme that they're thinking of, but with specific reference to, in Old Lyme, small cluster housing. It almost sounded like it was related to our report, but anyway, I know it would be, you don't want to just run after the developer, but certainly if somebody is speaking about Old Lyme in that way, that would be a possible resource to see if we could, I don't know, pick their
Because
brain.
Michael's connections with the day, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did anybody else read these? They were about two different projects, I believe.
Yeah.
Could have been the same project. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah, Michael, I think you read that one because I believe I got it. I think you told me about it when I was talking to you a couple weeks ago.
I think we were talking about the piece that Elizabeth wrote about the workshop.
About the workshop, which again appeared in today's Lyme, the edition of the weekly paper.
Oh, the Lyme
The Lyme
Times.
Times. You're right.
Yeah.
It was published twice, once in the London Day and once in the Lyme Times, and I haven't read it carefully.
That's good.
Right. It was a good, but both of those, the one in the day and this one seems a little more extensive as far as my memory, but those were good. But this was something different. This was about two other developments elsewhere, one of which included some affordable housing, and with a mention of Old Lyme as possibly being a place for a different kind of a project, because the one in Niantic is a larger, I guess it's 10 apartments, but even that, they're apartments above, mixed use above stores. Anyway, I just think it might be worth finding out where who that developer is and or developers.
There's a,
So you want to run that down and send it out so we can,
Yeah, I've got to. Of course, I'm a cleaner out of my paper, but I'll look at some stuff online.
go ahead,
did
Karen. sorry.
anybody follow the one in Madison where you're putting rental properties out? There's like, I can't remember exactly the acreage, but it was 5 or 6 houses on a very small lot as rental.
Yep, it was 6 houses on, I think it was a half an acre with on-site waste treatment. The zoning commission came back so with a counter proposal for 5, and last I heard, it's going to court.
Yeah, I heard that too. Because of the one item, the one property, I was surprised.
Yeah. So
Probably is the tipping for the that one property could be the tipping point for their.
Just, quite frankly, Bill, I can't see how though. I mean, you have 6 properties on how much land was it, Michael?
I think it's half acre,
Crazy, right?
pretty dense, but
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So it's part of our just keeping the pulse on what's happening.
Did you see the large parcels of land? And I'm disappointed Lori went off, that just went on the market on my end of town down Boston Post Road. Lori, did you see those? They're like 100 acres behind. So it's what, Old Post Road back there that goes into Stagecoach? You're muted.
It sounds like that piece that's sort of across from Limewood that's been on and off the market for a long time, on and off over
I
the
don't think
years.
these have ever been listed.
Okay.
I didn't even know they were back there. I thought that was federally owned or whatever Stone's Ranch is.
Okay.
So I was surprised they're privately owned.
I'll look those up. Wow.
Okay.
On land.
So just to wrap on the, I'm going to get us back on agenda here. So Jen, you're going to touch base with John, and next time we get together, we'll have some proposed questions or at least areas for discussion with prospective developers.
Yep. Can I send them out to everybody in advance of the meeting, special meeting next week?
Sure can. Okay, which brings us to second workshop. So that's currently scheduled for Tuesday, the 29th, which is less than 2 weeks from now. So it's coming up fast. That's the bad news. The good news is I think we're in pretty good shape. We had good feedback from the last workshop. So if we hadn't had pretty strong feedback that our thinking about strategy was on track, and that at least the attendees there felt better informed about affordable housing, we'd have more work to do. But I think at this point, we can just move on and take the next step, which is to do a quick recap on the last workshop, very quick recap, just to reestablish the guiding principles, to review the overall conditions in town and the rationale for the need for more housing options, and then get more into the strategy part of it, where we had taken some first steps into identifying what the options were, how we think about them, and how they began to sort themselves out as part of a strategy. And the top level of the strategy is essentially, and we'll put this in writing, is going to be to do measured increases in density where it's possible to do so, working within our tough limitations on land availability and water and waste treatment. So the kinds of forms that would take would be the ADUs and redevelopment, which actually works within an existing footprint, which is the ideal case. But then also going into things like duplexes and triplexes, small clusters and starter homes with CHFA mortgages that put less of a strain on the land and water and waste treatment. So the main thrust of our strategy is to not work against the limitations, but try to work within them and work with them. And I think we've set out some options that will give us the possibility of making progress. And we'll flesh those out more. And then as the strategy. And then the other part is to actually come up with some more concrete recommendations on what we're going to do next. So it's the seeds of the action plan that will be part of the overall affordable housing plan. And if you think back to, I don't have this page ready to show to us, but for the action plan, we had talked about the 3-tiered strategy, which is take advantage of the near-term opportunities like McCulloch and ARPA to create an environment that's more conducive to affordable housing development of the kinds that we have in mind. So that would involve some zoning changes, potentially some incentives. And then the third thing would actually be to pursue projects. And we had sorted out those again into branch 3 times again, which is the kinds of
Yep.
efficient projects that would work within the limitations that we would actually actively pursue. There were the kinds of projects like the open space add-on and mixed use that would require either an open space acquisition or an economic development project to add on to, and we would seek those, although we can't initiate them. And then there were some of the larger scale, whether it's a single family set aside development or a multifamily larger scale development that would definitely be challenged by either land availability in the case of the set aside development or water and septic in the case of a higher density large scale multifamily. But we wouldn't rule those out, but it would be difficult to initiate those. So we would be selective about supporting those. So anyway, I just ripped through a couple of slides of work, but it's stuff we've already discussed, and I think now the time is right to lay that out for the public and work through it.
Yeah, sounds good.
So with all that in mind, next week is going to be challenging for me, but I was going to check availability if we could do a special meeting to review materials for the workshop, which would also, as we review materials for the workshop, we're also working on the plan, because the content of the workshop is basically going to find its way in more narrative form and more prose form into the actual 830J plan. But I'm looking at like next Thursday, the 24th, and I just wanted to check availability then.
Mhm.
I'll also send out the usual email, but if anybody has a difficulty with that now, it would be good to, if you know you have difficulty with that, it would be good to know now.
Michael, that is on the board of directors for Habitat meeting, 5:30 to 7. But I could skip it if as needed.
Okay, but I was thinking that Wednesday is not good for me. I've got a hard commitment there that I really can't duck. Monday and Tuesday are kind of too soon to get it all together, so I went for Thursday. We could do it Friday too, which is give us time over the weekend to incorporate any feedback. But I haven't gone to Friday nights as a first choice, but I could put it out there too.
I can't do Friday night
I
birthday
can't.
dinner.
Yeah, I can't do Friday either.
Okay. I'll also, as I have in the past, if we do one on Thursday, I'll do another mop-up one on Friday with folks who can't make Thursday. And the idea is it's great if we can all think through it together, but if we have to do it in 2 steps to get all the feedback, then we can incorporate it and go by email before Tuesday.
And if Thursday works for everybody, I mean, I could certainly, I'll send out the questions in advance after speaking with John, and then, think about some of the other things around the developer, sort of process. And Karen, you and I can kind of work maybe in between on some of the things with the proposal for ARPA and Because I'll have a little bit of time at the beginning of the week next week as well.
Yeah, Jen, I don't think we'll put ARPA on the agenda for the special meeting. We
Okay,
can,
if it's just
we'll
the
do
develop,
things that are in critical path for the plan
okay,
or the workshop in the plan. So we can do we can take a little time. If you have some questions ready, we can go through those and keep that moving, at least the developer
Yeah.
outreach, but
so
spend the
see
bulk.
if John can make it on Thursday, and then, yeah, if everybody else can, then that'll be fine to skip me.
But we'll spend the bulk of the time reviewing the materials for the workshop.
Yeah, would it start at 5, Mike?
I could be flexible on that, whatever.
Yeah, because my meeting would start at 5:30, so 5 would be, I could join for a little bit.
Good.
Is there any way to start it earlier?
That's okay with me.
Karen, I know
Maybe
that
not for John. I mean, I'm working remotely on Thursday, so I can flex a little. But I can't.
we
vote
can
for John
phase it
for-
in too. We can kind of do a rolling meeting. Well, I can start at 4:30 for the people that can be there. You and John can roll in when you're ready at 5, and we'll wait till everybody's there to talk about the questions, but we can kind of do the feedback on a rolling basis.
I was only saying that for, for Jen's thing, and, I can be available, but, only if it works. If that works, like what you said.
I'll put it on the list of options in the what is always the follow-up email looking for the next meeting after our regular meetings.
We need voting
All right.
buttons, yeah.
Okay, also on this, regarding the second workshop, I had talked to Karen about this, and she's the consultant from SLR, and where we got to was we probably are going to want to do some real-time polling again. And our thought was to do a virtual again, even though we will probably have the opportunity to do it face-to-face. I'm not satisfied with having all virtual, having all of the community engagement for this be virtual. So I was thinking about what Halls Road did, and maybe as we move into April, we can put up a little poster session in Town Hall and maybe have some shifts of us attending them so that the public can drop in and have a look at some of what we're thinking and having a face-to-face aspect to our community outreach, even though we'll do the scheduled and structured workshops online. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's, I did attend a couple of the HRIC ones, and, I found it informative. And then, I think if we could blow up some of those slides, about Karen's depictions of, what is an ADU and how do those look, and some pictures of current affordable housing in other towns or whatever, I think it would be impactful. Now, I gotta tell you, I don't know how many people attended those, and they were held, for a couple of weeks, I believe. But, I think there's always 7 different ways to communicate with people, right? So the more communication, the better. And, if we could use that town hall room to the left of the entryway,
Yep.
to put up some posters, kind of have like a poster session, if you will. And I'd be happy to support that.
And if we could, set some hours when we're going to have somebody from the commission there to take questions and.
Yeah. And my friend Suzanne Thompson, who works there during the afternoons as the greeter, she's been eager to get information from us so that she could put it on her table of things that she distributes to people walking into her lair.
Okay, so we're going to lock in then Tuesday the 29th, virtual 7 p.m. Because
Okay,
I'm going to start the process of advertising it as of first thing tomorrow, if we're locked in.
sounds good to me.
And SLR is on call as well. They'll be there. I think this will be mostly us this time. I'm not. I think the live poll was good, and I think we got some useful information out of it. So I'd like to give that another shot. If we can come up with the right questions for it, we'll do that next week. But again, just even getting a pulse check that we're on the right track with our thinking, I found useful.
Yeah.
And actually, the other bit of data we got were from an audience that had some context and perspective on what affordable housing is and what it means, we got a nice bit of feedback on the kinds of affordable housing that people could potentially get comfortable with in their neighborhood and could support investment in, which is nice. Rolling back to the discussion about the Arpa proposal, because we didn't come up too well when it was just kind of a open, out of context question about, you want to spend ARPA money on affordable housing, that came
No.
relatively low, but when there was context about an investment in adaptive reuse, that came up pretty positively.
Yeah.
76% positive, so that's good. That was a clean doubling of what came back from the ARPA survey. So
Yeah.
good news. All right, so we're on for Tuesday the 29th.
Okay.
For the workshop. I'll go for a slide review, a materials review next Thursday, the 24th, with potential supplemental meetings either earlier or following day so we can make sure everybody gets a shot at it. Okay. Which brings us to the actual plan preparation. So I am going to refer now to one of the things I sent out, which is that outline. I actually sent out two. I woke up early this morning and had an opportunity to take another crack at it. I wanted to get you something before the meeting, but if you would look at the one dated today. We'll just go through that. So here's the Rivercut Consultants SLR. They have a template that's pretty much based off of the Department of Housing guide, and they have since we're doing something a little bit different, but fairly consistent with that, we've modified it. I haven't discussed this in detail with Karen yet, but we discussed it in principle last time, and this seems to work. So two things to think about. One is we're going to have some extra stuff in our plan, like the capacity assessment. The other is that we're going to be sharing writing responsibility with SLR. So we want to have the division of labor kind of cleaned up and understood as we actually go to putting fingers to keyboard and writing this plan. So with all that in mind, the outline goes that we start instead of a community, they have a community values statement as part of the standard template. That's been slightly modified to a values and principles statement, because I think we want to not just articulate the essential values held by the community, but some of the guiding principles that we've set out on what the plan is going to be and what it's not going to be, and what's going to influence it. So we're going to need to write that. I have looked at, there's a lot of community value statements out there from prior work. There's some on the town website. There's some on economic development based on the study that they did with Advanced CT. There's a lot out there. I have like a paragraph of stuff that I've kind of melded all of the things that I found for the value statement. The principles we've set out as part of the last workshop, and I don't see those changing. So I think we're in okay shape to write that. What I could use is a couple of folks to actually volunteer to write that section. It shouldn't be more than like a half a page. I can seed that with some of the research I did a little while ago and some of the really rough drafting I did. But I think it would be good if somebody who's been around in town for a while and somebody who hasn't been around in town for a while got together and wrote that. And I'll go ahead and say that I was thinking of Lori and Bill for that.
Sure.
My worry is I haven't been on the commission very long.
But this isn't stuff that we've deliberated on the commission. This is the notion of this is to is to not invent values, but basically to capture the values that have been set out in the other work that's been done in town, because I don't think that
Okay.
I don't think that community values are going to change. So I think what you would bring to the party, Lori, is the grounding of a longtime resident to vet, some of the statements we would make and say, yeah, that's hold on.
Okay. Happy to do that.
Along with some of the perspective that comes from somebody new in town like Bill that would say, what does that mean? And
That is fine
where
with,
did it come from?
I was all ready to say, yes, I would help. And then your next statement was someone who's been in town for a while. And
No,
I said, well, I'm out of that. And then you said, but a second. So, sure, we can, give us a start and we'll go from
Yeah.
there.
good. There's some seed material for it. Excellent. Okay, then there's the next section is an introduction. SLR write this. I think this is going to be mostly boilerplate. I'll confirm that with Karen tomorrow, but I don't think we have to do much authorship on here. The next section is the history of affordable housing. That SLR has some data on this. We have some content on this. My expectation is this is substantially going to be a lift from the committee report. I don't think this is going to be a lot of work. So I can work with Karen on making this happen if we need more help. Recruit it. And it is going to refer to the regional housing plan, which is in the hands of Rivercog and SLR. The fourth section will be a housing needs assessment. So this is really a narrative version of the assessment that SLR has already done and is in the quote unquote data deck. So that's mostly going to be in SLR's court to write that. SLR being Karen in this case. Not Karen Winters, Karen Martin. Although you're welcome to, Karen. Ditto for the land use zoning and infrastructure assessment. So the SLR folks will be reviewing the planning documents, regulations, infrastructure availability, and are going to at least do advanced drafting on that. We'll have a chance to review and modify any of this, but I think they're going to be the primary author of that. Also, again, in section 6, we've extended part of what we're funding from our grant is the development capacity assessment. So that again, the narrative, both the whatever materials are associated with that and the narrative part, I would see in SLR's court. Then back in the last two sections, the strategy and the action plan. So the original outline has that the DOH template has that kind of blended together, which doesn't suit me. I would say we want to have a narrative about what the strategy is, what we're going to do, and then the action plan is more how you're going to do it. So they kind of interleave the what and the how. Jen, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, along with everybody else's. But the way I've done this in the past is to say what the strategy, which is what you're going to do, and then break out after that how you're going to do it, and along with who's accountable and what the sequencing and any dependencies and priorities would be.
It was on mute. Yeah, I think we could have several of the things we've already discussed over the last 2 years, included in that section, and then as you said, break it out down to the more specific detail about action, making things actionable and translating that into execution. That would be most helpful.
Good.
So.
Yeah, and for the strategy part, I don't want to go through the monologue I gave in our previous agenda item.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah.
We got a fair amount of strategy out there to articulate. Yeah. And again, keep an eye on the prize. With something that wasn't in there is just citing what the objective of the whole plan is. I mean, this whole plan exists to come up with a plan to increase the number of affordable housing developments in the municipality, quote unquote. So, we need to keep our eyes on that if the plan is going to be on target.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it much since May, I believe, of last year, but So we talked initially about sort of changing perceptions and change management. And I think that our slides and our presentations to the public go a long way to do that. And maybe we, with this second session, we'll get a little bit better gauge of where the community is. We'll never know for sure, but get a better sense of that. And if we need to put out more things, for instance, on social media or in Tim's town halls or in anything Tim does, basically, or the first at the selectmen, not just Tim, but the selectmen. I think that we could have talking points and, make sure that they're on point with our communications, just tying that all together. And if, we can pull some things from Karen Martin's slides and our slides and, just make sure that those are the things that people hear repeated in either the patch or Limeline or CT Examiner, the day, as well as Tim's Friday emails, and any of our communications. So I think that would be helpful to just revisit that maybe and just see if we could keep that forefront.
I completely agree, Jen. I would actually see that occupying two places. So one would be in the strategy. So we're going to have an arm of our strategy that says create a conducive environment. And so
Yep.
that conducive environment will be things like zoning regulations, which are kind of technical, but I would also definitely see that sustained community outreach would be part of that.
Yeah.
Creating a conducive environment. And so it would be in the strategy. And it would also appear in the action items with some of the more concrete things that you just described.
Yeah, and I think we've commented in the past how other towns perceive us as far as their perception of us outside looking in. And, I think, reaching beyond CT Examiner and Limeline, perhaps maybe we could, eventually when we get towards the end of our planning process, make sure that the day is supportive of, or at least open to hearing our story and what we're trying to do.
Definitely. So that sustained, we've said it in the last act, which is the plan is not the end of the communication, it's actually the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
We continue. So a sustained community engagement is going to be in the strategy.
Cool. Yep.
Good.
Sounds good.
All right. I know you guys haven't had a lot of time to review this, but I'll be talking about this outline with Karen tomorrow, Karen Martin. And if you have any thoughts on it, send them along, and we'll bring it out again next week. But we want to kind of zero in on what the sections are and who's going to be writing them, so we can get to work.
Okay.
Time is going by, and our real key milestone right now is going to be April 20th, which is our next regular meeting, which is when we're going to want to take this plan up and have a public comment at the beginning of the meeting and hopefully be in a position to adopt it. If we're not, we're going to have a special meeting to adopt it sometime in late April or early May, so that the Board of Selectmen can go through their process to endorse it, and we make June 1st.
Okay.
So the best case would be we go into April 20th with the plan written, if not fully formatted, but it'll have all the content settled and be able to adopt it.
Yep.
Okay. And we've been talking about strategy and recommendations all along this, so we don't need to rehash that. We'll have it in more concrete form next week to review. But on that, I don't see anything that we haven't discussed yet finding its way into the strategy at this point. I think it's we have the data, we started to communicate it, we've thought about it. Now it's mostly assembling it and sanding and polishing it.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on the plan and workshop? It's gonna be a busy couple of weeks coming up here, busy month.
Yep. I know, I can't believe it's April already. It was just like last year we just started meeting.
Yeah.
we're like, oh, we have till June of next year to do it.
Isn't that how it always goes? And it is, we're coming up on crunch time, and as I look at all the stuff we got to do, I get a little nervous, but if I look back what we have in hand, the research is pretty much done. We have a good sense of direction on what the strategy is and what the key components of the strategy are going to be and what it's not going to be. We've had at least one good round with the community. We've got another one coming up. No reason to expect it won't go well. And then it's the writing.
Yeah.
A lot of this is already, and we also have the committee report, which has a lot of pre-written stuff in it. And we have SLR on the case, so we don't have to write all this.
Exactly.
So that makes me feel better, although I'm still nervous.
All good.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5 then. 22 legislative session. In particular, that piece of legislation that I sent to you. Let me get it open here. I just had it open. Where did I put it? Oh, my brain. Anyway.
The fair share thing?
Fair share. Yeah, so what this bill is, so right now my understanding is that this bill is sitting in committee. I don't know when the next action is scheduled for it. But what this bill is essentially capturing the Open Communities Alliance Fair Share Plan as legislation rather than a white paper. And what it entails, I have not studied it in a lot of detail. What it entails is a needs assessment that was done by the folks at the Open Communities Alliance. And then some methodology that I haven't cracked yet to distribute the overall need across the state into the regions and then into individual towns. And what my reading of this proposed bill is, it's not law, it's a proposed bill in committee. My reading of the proposal is that towns would be assigned a quota of affordable housing from the top down, that the town would be accountable for achieving, and also heaving a heavy sigh, another plan would have to be prepared to do that. Having just in 2022 prepared the first of a rolling set of 5-year plans. So I'm not sure how that would all fit together. I have no doubt that that's going to be a topic of discussion about basically layering another plan on top of the 830J plan. But I dug into the details and looked for what came out at the end. And what came out at the end of all this was Old Lyme's proposed quota was something like 350 units of affordable housing. So again, looking at our charge as the Affordable Housing Commission, we're going to need to come up with some sort of opinion on this and get it to the Board of Selectmen so that they can use that in their discussions with the regional council of governments and with our state representatives. So I think this is going to move quickly because the legislative session is underway, and I think it comes to a close in June. So it's right on the same timeline as the 830J plan, of course. But if you could give this legislation a reading and also go to that website and do some reading about what the Open Communities Alliance proposal was. And we'll see how that matches with the proposed legislation. And meanwhile, we'll monitor. I don't know if this will come out of committee or not. I think it was proposed last year and it didn't make it out of committee.
Yeah, it's also based, it's already over almost 3 years old. So the information is based on data previous to the 3 years old when it was written. So,
right.
I think it doesn't incorporate the the new census data, but not that that would change much either, one way or the other probably. But yeah, I think that it's just more another group. I don't know why they entertain this in committees at all, with desegregate CT doing one thing and OCA doing another, and HUD and Habitat and Hope and everybody else doing something else. There's no like one group that's driving this, and if they continue to just layer on legislation after legislation, the only people that are getting screwed are the towns and the people like us that have to volunteer to mush through this
And figure it out. Yeah.
nobody else reads it.
Yeah, I have tipped my hand a little bit. I've done some reading. I have a general concern about the top-down stuff. If you look at what's happened with 830G, that's got some flaws in it because it was top-down.
Absolutely. And it's
and-
a moment in time too. It's like they took
Right.
a moment in time back 5 years ago and said, oh, there's 164,132, homes that are not affordable. Let's spread those out between 169 towns. And, so
The other concern I had is I looked, it may be in there. I haven't, I'll just stipulate that I have not read it in detail, but I did scan it at least and see if there was any kind of capacity or feasibility aspect of this, or whether it was just a strictly needs-based algorithm. It's pretty dense algorithm, but
Yeah, I think there is a capacity piece in there, but still, the numbers they come up with, I think would be closer to our 100-year plan that we've
yeah, maybe reduce it to 70 or 80. It's. But in any case, again, to meet the charge to our commission, I think we're going to need to understand this better and to have some cogent thoughts about how the town should respond to it and to our representatives.
But the other interesting thing is that, 830J, the reports are due this June. I believe that the first report for that, should that legislation go, was, I guess, 20, can't remember, if it was 23.
It was
Yeah.
23, yeah.
Something in 23, then there's something in 24, and then it's every 10 years after that. So I'm thinking, would not be very wise to have commissions spending their time just writing reports.
Plans. Yeah, I mean, planning is an important thing. I don't want to,
Of course.
but at some point we want to go into implementation and not just write another plan. And actually, maybe do something to meet the objective of actually increasing the availability of affordable housing in town,
Right.
which is the end game, not just the plans. So anyway, I don't have anything other than to raise awareness on what this is, what at least I see our responsibility as our commission, and we'll put it on the next agenda. But over the next couple of weeks, let's prepare for that. And maybe by then there'll be some committee action that will
kill it.
inform us. And so far, that's I get these alerts from cost. Maybe have you seen anything from CCM, Jen, about legislation relevant to housing?
Not relevant to housing this week, no.
Okay, we'll keep
In
our.
all honesty, I may not have read their Monday report, but I'll look back at it. But I don't think so.
Okay, this is what the Council of Small, the Connecticut Council of Small Towns, COST, of which Old Lyme is a member, does a newsletter and digest, and picked it up there too.
Yeah.
And they will come out with a position.
Yeah, and desegregate CT hasn't gone away, so they're still hunkering around in the background too, looking at people with transportation hubs. So we're under the radar for right now, but they've got some of their bigger Metro North lines in their eyesight.
Okay, so between PA 2021-29 is active. We do need to be on top of that one, because that was passed into law, and the opt-out processes going forward, and we want to follow that up with some changes and this newer legislation. We want to track and be prepared to respond to.
Okay.
Okay. Other business. I have one thing for other business, and then I'll open it up. So we had talked about putting up a resource page, pointers to mortgages, available rentals, so that when folks inquire, not everybody realizes that we're not an affordable housing authority. So we have fielded some questions about availability of housing and how people can find it. I think it would be useful, even though we're not a housing authority, is to have, just in our role as an Affordable Housing Commission, is to have some helpful information up, some pointers to state links and local links that where people could get more information, phone numbers to help them identify either assisted mortgages or assisted rentals. Karen, I know you've done some background work on this. You have some contacts for the Rocky Neck stuff. So Michelle Noren can help us with putting up a page. So if we can come up with some content on this. Also the Lyme Affordable Housing Commission webpage has some good content up there for pointers to the CHFA program. So if we could just kind of collate, I mean, even if it's just a couple of links, just to get a tab up on our page that says, here's some information about available affordable housing. We don't have to have it completely done and dusted. Just if we have something that's at least accurate and potentially helpful, there's no reason to just not put it up there, even if it's in partial form. So Karen, I know you've had some interest in that. Can you maybe just in really rough form, just some resources?
Yep.
That'd be awesome. And then I think that would fulfill another part of our mission. We've been really focused on the plan right now, which is driven by the deadline, and it makes good sense. But we have some of these other networking and community outreach aspects to our responsibilities that would be good to not just wait on. Okay, any other business? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move to upcoming meetings and agendas. We've talked about two already. So one is the April zoning commission meeting, where we are slated to be on the agenda. It's not impossible we'll be bumped off it if they have a lot of applications and such come in. But we're slated to be on the April agenda. Another meeting that's coming up this Saturday, there is going to be an Economic Development Commission forum that I was invited to, and Jen is going to be part of as well, where they're bringing together the Planning Commission, the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Board. A lot of the local boards and commissions are going to be part of this, and there will be discussion about the Economic Development Commission recommendations. I think there'll be some stuff there on Halls Road. I expect an agenda coming out very shortly, like tomorrow morning, and I'll pass it along. It is a public meeting. I believe it's going to be in person only. So if you can attend, you're absolutely welcome to attend. And Jen and I are slated to be participating directly. I have a brief agenda item to talk about the results of the regional housing plan and the regional housing assessment and our local housing assessment, which is going to be a straight list and a real condensation, a real shrinkage of some of the material we put up at the workshop. Just a couple of pages. Its total time allocated is 20 minutes, so it's it'll be 5 or 6 pages of slides and leaving time for discussion and questions. But again, nothing that any of us haven't thought through and seen before, and that hasn't appeared in other places. Just some selected materials it'll be a good opportunity to raise awareness to the other boards and commissions.
Did you tell us what time it is on Saturday?
9:30 to 1:30 on Saturday. I'll get you the agenda and particulars as soon as they're available.
I'm out of town this weekend.
Okay, Bill. So there's that one. We talked about the materials review next Thursday, 29th. Watch your email for details. We have the workshop coming up on the 29th. So this Thursday the 24th for a materials review for the workshop, which is on the 29th. And then the other meeting that's out there is our next regular meeting on April 20th, where we are aiming to have the plan ready for not an official public hearing, but for a last round of public comment. And then we will take it up for adoption at that meeting, and that will dominate our agenda for the 20th. So that's upcoming meetings. One other item on upcoming meetings. The legislation that was passed last year that allowed virtual meetings like we're having right now is set to expire on April 30th. I'm not aware if it's being considered to extend that, but I've raised it with Town Hall. And actually, our local rep is going to be at the meeting on Saturday, so we'll have a chance to do some lobbying on that one. It's I found it to be really useful to be able to do this, whether it's in the interest of safety during the pandemic or it's in the interest of being able to have Jen participate from North Carolina. So we can,
Thank you, people. I'm not one of the snowbirds who just doesn't show up.
and it'll happen to all of us at some point. And John has been dialing in when folks are either stuck at home or in a different spot, but they have time to dial in, and they're able to do so. So it also provides us with a recorded record of the meeting, which makes minutes easier and lets people who aren't able to participate in real time check out the full proceedings if they have the patience to do it after the fact.
Yeah.
But I think it has a lot of advantages, and in some ways serves to actually enable public participation better than in-person meetings does. Things like weather as well. Although I am also aware that there are people who don't have the technology, either capability or affinity, that would prefer face-to-face meetings. So as the pandemic wanes, I don't envision that we would only do virtual meetings, but I think it would be good to have the capability to do it. But if there's any, if you'd like to modify that position, but I think the net result is that for us at least, I think it would be good if the capability to have these kinds of meetings went forward.
Yeah, I've been pushing for that for the Board of Ed as well, just so we can keep that going, because we really have many more participants in a BOE meeting if it's available online. And they just come in for the part that they want to listen to, and then they drop off after that for the boring stuff, and instead of trudging all the way to the school and then walking out halfway through somebody's presentation. So it's been an effective tool for sure. And we put ours on YouTube. Not that we would do this, but for the Board of Ed, it's videoed and displayed on YouTube for people to listen in for
Yep.
whatever they want. Not necessarily participate, but listen in.
Yep. So I will forward that request on and just add our voice to whatever voices are out there saying we'd like to keep doing this. And I don't think we're alone.
Great. That'll be great.
All right. Anything else on upcoming meetings and agenda items? We got a pretty packed agenda coming up. There's no doubt what we're going to be doing between now and June. That's for sure.
Yeah. That looks good.
All righty. So with that, I see it's just us on the line. I see no one from the public dialed in or joining us by video, but I will nonetheless pause to see if there's something I'm not seeing. And I'm just going to click the unmute all just in case. Okay, hearing none. No input from the public. I will close the public comment and look for a motion to adjourn.
This is Jen. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Bill? Discussion? All in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
I
I,
Motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. This meeting went a little more along the timeline that we strive for. Although part of it was scheduling another meeting next week, but
We're super flexible.
thank you for that. Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
we haven't met in a while, so
Yes, we actually, went a whole month this time. So
we were going quite a bit. So,
Sure, sure.
Michael, will you send something to Lori and me? And then Lori, I will be in really kind of out of commission till Monday. But you would like this by Thursday, right, Michael?
not necessarily by
I-
Thursday. No, this is, hang on, let me stop the recording. Hang on one sec. And then we can go.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.